Hi, everyone. Tony Costa here from Toronto Apologetics. So glad that you could join us. Today, I want to talk about, just briefly, we're going to be looking at a brief clip on an Islamic Imam and what he says are the terms of jihad and what happens when Islam conquers a certain nation or territory and implements Sharia law. Before doing that, just want to mention that we'd like to encourage our viewers to subscribe to the channel, Toronto Apologetics. It's absolutely free. And also to like and to share the video. And so we'd just encourage that. So, on to our subject for today. We often hear that any criticism of Islam, you'll hear in the West that it's usually people are referred to as Islamophobes, and it's Islamophobic to criticize Islam. It's wrong to hate people, and we are called to love even our enemies, as Jesus taught. And so we're not against our Muslim friends, our Muslim neighbors. We love them for the sake of the gospel. But there's nothing wrong with critiquing an ideology. Islam is an ideology. It's a worldview, just like Christianity. Christianity is attacked and critiqued, and it has been critiqued in academia for the past 400 years. And Christianity is still here, and it's growing. And the Bible is still one of the world's best sellers as well. And so criticism does not hurt the church. It doesn't hurt Christianity. And so to criticize whether it's Hinduism or Buddhism or Judaism or Sikhism or whatever faith it may be, to criticize an ideology is not hateful, and it's not being mean at all. Because as I said, the Bible and Christianity have been scrutinized and criticized. When your ideology cannot withstand criticism or withstand scrutiny, the problem is with your ideology. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted you to listen to an Islamic Imam who's well known in social media circles, and listen to what he says about what happens when Islam conquers a given nation or territory. So we're going to take a look at this, and I will stop the video when necessary and to make my comment. So let's listen in.
When Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, what do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says the first thing you do is call them to Islam.
So when a Muslim country, an Islamic army conquers an adjacent country, what do they do? Do we kill everybody? Well, no, we don't kill everybody. What you're going to notice here is that he's going to enumerate for us. And again, I'm borrowing this from X, from Twitter. This is not my own posting, by the way. I'm just using the video here. And so, as I said, the three options that Muhammad gave his followers in the Hadith is basically the three that he's going to enumerate is number one, you invite people to Islam. That's called dawah. You proclaim Islam, you invite people to Islam. If they don't accept it, there's a provision made for Jews and Christians being people of the book, and being people of the book, if they don't accept Islam, in the case of an Islamic takeover, they have to pay a special poll tax called the jizya. And then if they refuse to pay the poll tax, then they will fight them. Islam dictates that they be fought against and killed. And so really there are basically 3 points there. Now, when it comes to those who are not Christians and Jews, who are not people of the book, it's very simple. They invite you to Islam. If you don't accept, and they will kill you. That's the Sharia. That's the terms of engagement. And so let me just take this back again a little bit here, and just let's hear this Imam say what he has to say, and he will enumerate those 3 points that we made.
When Muslims go and conquer the adjacent country, what do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they refuse, then tell them Allah.
Okay, so the first thing is dawah. The first thing is you invite them to Islam.
Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation.
There you go. So there's that taxation, there's that special jizya, but this is for Jews and Christians. And so because you're Jews and Christians and you live in an Islamic state, you are compelled to pay the special tax. Now, imagine, just for the sake of argument, imagine if in the West, in Western countries, Muslims were told that because they're Muslims, just because they're Muslims, and they don't want to become Christians or they don't want to become westernized people who advocate democracy and so forth, and a poll tax, or let's say a special tax was enjoined upon them, there would be cries of Islamophobia. There would be critiques and protests, and this is not fair, and this is wrong, and you're discriminating, and so forth. So suffice it to say that there is discrimination in Islam. If you're a Jew and a Christian and you refuse to convert to Islam in an Islamic state, you pay the special poll tax. That is discrimination. Now you may say, "Oh, it's just for protection." Well, now we're talking about this is the mafia style that you pay up and we'll keep you safe. I mean, this is mafia style politics. So I'm going to let the Imam do his spiel. And so remember, the first thing is you invite them to Islam. If they don't accept Jews and Christians, then you impose upon them a taxation.
In return, when enemy comes and attack your country, you don't fight. We Muslims protect you. Subhanallah, for this little money? Yes.
For this little money, I don't think so. I don't think the jizya, which is the poll tax mentioned in the Quran, in chapter 9 of the Quran, if you look at chapter 9, verses 28 to 30, it mentions this a special poll tax called the jizya for Jews and Christians. And to say, well, this is just a little bit of money. No, 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 no. This type of payment is meant to humiliate, to make them feel subdued because they didn't become Muslims. And what he's basically saying is, well, because if you pay this special tax, this jizya, the Islamic State will protect you. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it sounds like The Godfather with Marlon Brando. If you pay up, we'll keep you safe. You don't pay up, we won't keep you safe.
And you enjoy sitting in your homes and in your country and live your life.
Yeah, you enjoy living in your house and living your life normally, except you cannot sound the church bells. If you have bells at your church tower, you can't sound them. You can't evangelize in an Islamic state. You can't proselytize. You can't share the gospel. You can't speak against Islam. You can't speak against the Quran and so forth. So no, you don't live lives normally. There's a lot of there's a lot of miscommunication going on here, deliberate miscommunication, I would think.
Normally, but the ruling is for Sharia. So you do not open nightclubs, you do not fornicate. If they refuse.
So if an Islamic army was to take over another country, an adjacent country, they would impose the Sharia, meaning no alcohol, no nightclubs, no fornicating, et cetera, much like what you're seeing in certain parts of Europe, where they're implementing what's been called Sharia zones and so forth. This Imam, at least he's being honest. I mean, he's right out there on social media. This is public record. This is not something that I'm making up. You're hearing it from the horse's mouth. And yet the West doesn't seem to get this, especially Western leftist politicians. They don't understand a thing. They're like the frog in the flask. They just don't understand.
Then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves.
Did you hear that? And if you fight, so if you don't accept the provision of the special poll tax, the jizya, we will fight you and we will take you and make you our slaves. You'll become slaves. So what's that thing about the slave trade? We keep hearing about the slave trade and we keep hearing this constant condemnation and this constant battering of how the West has brought slavery and created slavery and well, no. It was the West that abolished slavery. It was Christians who abolished slavery. Um, this is just a fact of history, that it was Christians in England and, of course, in the United States, who abolished slavery. And so when you look at the Islamic world, where in many places slavery is still practiced, it's never been condemned or rescinded. It's still being practiced. Um, this is what you're hearing coming from this Imam. This is what you're hearing.
And we take your land, and you take where, because you refuse.
Because you refused. We're going to take your houses. We're going to take your land because you refused. How dare you? How dare you refuse to become a Muslim? Um, and these are the rules of engagement, and they're right out of the Islamic sources. There's nothing that he's saying here that is contrary to the sources. But you won't hear this in modern Western media. You will not hear this in modern Western schools. They will not talk about this in your children's schools. They will not talk about this in high schools. Even in academic circles, there's pressure placed on keeping a low tone on these things.
I give you two good options in the coming 40, 50 years when the Muslims become strong as they're supposed to be.
So so again, in 40, 50 years, Muslims are supposed to get strong. This is what the Quran says, that they should be uppermost. Why you crying for peace when you should be uppermost? Um, and so what this Imam has laid out here, I mean, is this Imam Islamophobic? Is he being Islamophobic by saying what he's just said? Would anyone accuse him of being Islamophobic? Is this an example of Islamophobia? No, not at all. He's simply stating what his sacred texts say. And if you do the research, that's exactly what you'll find. He's simply being true to what his texts are saying. And so, once again, when we talked about slavery, William Wilberforce in the United Kingdom in the 1830s, the British Parliament passed a law that banned slavery. British soldiers, many of them died at sea, capturing many Islamic slave traders, releasing the slaves from the boats that were seized by the British Navy, and so forth. And then, of course, the United States with Abraham Lincoln's Act of Emancipation. So when people keep bringing up the issue of slavery, they never mention the fact that it was Christians who abolished it. But here you have this Imam saying that in the Islamic State, we can make you our slaves. We can take your homes. We can take your wives and so forth. And so I'll stop there. There's not really much to say other than what we've heard. And so what I wanted to do, folks, is I just wanted to share this brief video from this Imam, again, to show that what you're hearing in the Western media today, especially from the left, political spectrum, is not what this Imam is talking about. It is not what the sources actually say. And so all of that to say that when you hear Christian apologists like myself and others talk about things like this, about the imposition of Sharia law and the potential takeover, because remember, Islam, like Christianity, is a global missionizing faith. It believes in taking the message to the world, and they want all peoples to become Muslim. The only difference between that and Christianity is that Christ commands us to go and preach the gospel, and it should be spurred on by love and by reason and freedom. We do not force people to become Christians. We do not kill people to become Christians. Those who in history have claimed to be Christians and have done things like that, they did so in contradiction to what Christ taught. There's nothing in Scripture that says that Jesus taught us to go and kill people if they don't become his followers, to go and take people's wives and to make slaves out of them. That's not what Jesus taught. However, in the Islamic sources, it's very clear that, as Muhammad said in the Hadith, I've been commanded by Allah to fight the people until they confess there is no God and that I am his messenger, and their property will be safe from me. So the worldviews are miles and miles apart. They're not the same at all. And so I hope you found this discussion interesting. And once again, we encourage you to subscribe to Toronto Apologetics, to like the video, and to share it. And I also wanted to share with you as well, as you could see over my shoulder here, there's my new book, No King But Christ, has come out. And No King But Christ, The Collapse and Bankruptcy of Secular Worldviews. Please ignore the gray bar here. Is just saying that this is a print copy, not for resale. But the actual book does not have that gray banner there. So the book is out. I would encourage you to get it. It's on Amazon. I'll put a link to the book in the description box. And so I talk about some of this in this book, as well as other things that have brought Western society to the point of collapsing and breakdown. And of course, speaking of the supremacy of Christ as king over all, and how he will one day be the true sovereign. He is the true sovereign, but one day, the Bible says, the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Thanks again, everyone, for joining in, and hope to see you again in another video. Take care. God bless.